Today at shopdap.com we talk about VW concept cars you may have never heard of. As most of you know, I've been in the VW and Audi game for a while. That's what we do, specialize in VW parts, and we sell them, in case you didn't know. In my time in this game, I've seen lots of concept VW models come and go. Let's take a look at some of the concepts that never were. Of all the concepts, the Concept R may be the coup de grace, the magnum opus, the piece de la resistance, the chief dish of a meal. The Concept R debuted at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 2003, and this car wasn't just a looker. This car was a mid-engine rear-wheel drive 3.2-liter V6 with 265 horsepower and a new at the time DSG transmission. I suspect this car was never made because it would have had a very healthy price tag and potentially would cannibalize the market of our sister brand Audi, the Audi TT, and some of the other performance Audi models. The Concept R also had enough chrome on the dash to make a middle-aged Corvette owner take his blood pressure medicine. The BlueSport Roadster rolled out at the Detroit Auto Show in 2009. The name Blue on this mid-engine Roadster meant green. The reason why this Blue Roadster was so green was because it was fitted with a 2-liter ultra-clean diesel. In fact, some say when they tested that diesel engine, there were no emissions at all. Joking aside, this concept was one of the cars that did end up having a chance of seeing the light of day. The BlueSport was planned to be based on the MQB chassis and have either a 1.2T, a 1.4T, or a 2-liter turbo as engine options. Weighing in at just 2,600 pounds, this car was intended to be a competitor to the Mazda MX-5. Unfortunately, this car rolled out during a global recession, putting this 2-seater unpractical car on the shelf to collect dust. I suspect actually some of the design cues from the BlueSport got introduced and used on the Mark III TT. Unlike the other cars in this list, the XL1 actually had production models, albeit not very many at all, as a matter of fact. VW claimed that this car was capable of 261 miles per gallon. This car was a plug-in hybrid that had a 47 horsepower 800cc turbo diesel engine and a 20 kilowatt electric motor with a 7-speed DSG transmission. The name XL1 is said to signify that 1 liter of fuel gets you 100 kilometers of range. But because I'm American, I reject the metric system, along with the only 2 other countries in the world, Burma and Liberia.
Actually, it says here that they're working on converting to the metric system.
Well, I guess we're gonna be the only people left measuring things in football fields. The XL1 used a carbon fiber chassis for weight savings. The L1, which preceded the XL1, weighed in at just 840 pounds. But due to all the pesky safety requirements to make that a road legal car, the XL1 landed at 1,800 pounds. The XL1 did indeed have production models with 200 models offered to the public. New, these had a price tag of around 115,000 pounds, which in 2015 dollars converts to around 175,000 US dollars. To this day, the XL1 holds the record for the world's most aerodynamic vehicle with a drag coefficient of 0.189. The EA266 came in 1969 when VW was looking to replace the air-cooled Beetle. A team at VW collaborated with a team at Porsche led by Ferdinand Piëch. Piëch later became the CEO of VW AG and was the driving force behind the Phaeton and the Bugatti Veyron. The EA266 was a hatchback with an inline 4-cylinder laid flat underneath the back seat. Just to be clear, when I say flat, it was not a flat or opposed motor, it was a normal 4-cylinder engine. Turn sideways. This engine made 100 horsepower, which was a significant increase over the air-cooled Beetle's 53 horsepower. During the development, they even envisioned this vehicle to be a configurable platform, much like the MQB platform, where you could have a coupe, a roadster, and a van all on the same platform. They apparently also had issues with engines blowing up, which I can't imagine why they would have that problem when they took an engine that should be vertical and then turned it sideways. The design faced handling issues and issues with oil vapors permeating the cabin, well, because the engine was underneath the passenger's seat. This is the Auto 2000. And while you would think that this is a concept car that would have led to the production of the Pontiac Aztec, you would be wrong.
You're goddamn
wrong. The front of this may look familiar as it has a lot of similarities to the B3 Passat, later produced in 1989. The back, however, tells a different story. Like you're not interested in meeting people of the opposite sex. or the same sex, really anybody. This car sported a digital instrument cluster and was part of a project funded by the German government to develop more fuel-efficient vehicles. This included 3-cylinder diesel engines. The turbo version had 53 horsepower and went 0 to 60 in just over a blazing 18 seconds. The supercharged version had 60 horsepower and made it to 60 in just over 15.5 seconds. The best fuel economy was awarded to the turbo diesel version with 56 miles per gallon. Most notably, this Aztec prequel was extremely aerodynamic with a drag coefficient of 0.25. Now for context, the 2016 Tesla Model S has a drag coefficient of 0.24. So suck it, Elon. I'm just kidding, Elon, don't suck it. This is the Futura concept. Now, if you thought that this might look like something that you would ride at Epcot, you'd be right. Somehow this looks like a future version of the 1997 Toyota Previa. Okay, as silly as this thing looks, in my opinion, this actually is pretty cool. This thing featured electric power steering, which compensated for wind and road crown to adjust to keep the vehicle straight going down the road, 4-wheel steering, parking sensors, and not to mention those sweet gull wing doors. I don't think I need to tell you why I think this never made it to production. The Advanced Activity Concept, or AAC, was essentially a Touareg pickup. It had the V10 TDI with 313 horsepower and 553 pound-foot of torque that later came in the Touareg production models. This was more of a luxury pickup as a concept with a beautiful interior, xenon headlights, and a nearly useless bed. While the AAC is an awesome model and I would have loved to see it make production, it was never produced. Some of you might think that the chicken tax is actually responsible for why the AAC was never made. I suspect that's not the case. For those not familiar, the chicken tax was a tax implemented in 1964 and placed a 25% duty or import tax on light-duty trucks, potato starch, dextrin, and brandy. I suspect the AAC wouldn't have applied to the chicken tax because it would have been considered a medium-duty truck, but even aside from that, it would have been a premium priced product at about $70,000, $75,000 depending on equipment, and is a premium price but not a premium brand being VW. If it were Audi or Mercedes or BMW, it might be able to command that, but as you see, they've never produced pickup trucks either. The Magellan. It is so not gelling.
I'm gelling.
You're not gelling.
You're so not gelling.
The Magellan was a pretty cool concept car, even if it did look like the Mazda MPV, and the Isuzu V-Cross made a future baby. It's almost like they said, oh, nobody likes those cars? How about a more futuristic version of the cars that nobody likes? Oh, hey, Tom, why don't we make our own version of the Isuzu V-Cross? Well, John, I like the Mazda MPV better. Why don't we combine them together?
Yeah! Sick.
As weird as the Magellan was, it had some awesome equipment. Most notably, the 4-liter W8 engine, all-wheel drive, and electronic locking differentials. This was a 6-seater model with a 2+2+2 layout. The interior was actually pretty cool in my opinion. It sported a futuristic look and feel. I don't think VW ever planned on actually making the Magellan as a production vehicle. I actually think it's more likely that someone high up at VW had a plan to give the Magellan to Elon Musk to use as a Mars rover. The revival of the bus has been something that they've talked about for a very long time. Ever since they stopped selling the original microbus, someone said, hey man, when are you gonna make a new one of these, man?
Wow, that's a great idea, man. Hey, you're one of those idea men, aren't you, man?
Coming off the heels of the Beetle launch, VW rolled out this concept microbus in 2001. This had a 3.2-liter V6, which I assume is the 3.2 VR6 that later came in the R32. The outside looks like a modern version of the microbus, with the interior being what I would consider a technological reach for its time. I suspect the shortness of the front end of this vehicle and putting an engine in front of it made it impossible for this vehicle to meet US crash standards. The next microbus concept was the Bulli in 2011. This was a much less attractive van, and I'm just gonna speculate here for a second, but it's likely that they extended the front of this vehicle because they had to try to put an engine into it to make it possible to produce this vehicle, but unfortunately didn't get the positive response they were hoping for. The interior of the Bulli was pretty cool and had a very modern and Tesla-esque feel. The most recent microbus is known as the ID Buzz. This concept dropped in 2017 and is an all-electric vehicle. This vehicle is just the right combination of retro and futuristic Being an electric car, this solves the space issue to meet the design aesthetic because the electric motor and the battery are going to be underneath the vehicle. The real question is, will this vehicle ever get made? I'm personally skeptical, but that's mostly because of price. There's speculation that this vehicle will start at $40,000. My money is that it's gonna start higher than that. Only time's gonna tell. The GTI is an icon for the brand, and this is the icon for the icons. This GTI was clearly never going to be a production vehicle, but man, is it cool. While this looks similar to a Mark V GTI, it is far from it. This GTI has a twin-turbo 6-liter W12 engine in the rear. This car is 5 inches wider and 3 inches lower than a stock Mark V GTI, and it has 650 horsepower as opposed to 201 horsepower in 2-liter turbo. The designer of this car mentioned that one of the biggest challenges during development of this vehicle was getting enough air into the back of the vehicle without ruining the design aesthetic of the car. That's why they have air ducts in both the C-pillar and the lower side of the vehicle. This car was an engineering marvel that they slapped together in just 8 weeks. But the one thing it does lack is balance.
This car will not go round corners.
Even if you're really gentle, you'll still, yes.
So there's my list of VW concepts that I think are cool. Make sure you leave yours in the comments below and any I might have missed along the way. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.